Hi, 7th graders. This video is to help you with this lesson entitled Inferring for Vocabulary and Questioning as a Metacognitive Strategy. Now that's a big mouthful, but we'll help you out here. So, the first thing is get thinking. Take a moment to reflect on the following quote by James Thurber. What do you think Thurber means here? It is better to know some of the questions than all of the answers. So this kind of gives you a clue as to what this lesson is about. You might have more questions than answers after you read the myth, Cupid and Psyche, but that's okay. Sometimes that's better. So your objectives here are to identify unfamiliar vocabulary words and phrases, predict what unfamiliar vocabulary words and phrases might mean based on context clues, and we've learned how to do that. There's 4 different ways. You can look back in your notes, or you can look back in Unit 1 on how to do that. And another objective is that you will be able to infer how setting, characters, plot, conflict, and theme all impact each other. So your activities in this lesson are going to be to read the myth of Cupid and Psyche from Bullfinch's mythology, and unlike other lessons, I want you to read Cupid and Psyche after we do the lesson, before you do the questions, but after this video. Okay? You're going to practice inferential questioning strategies using a BDA questioning chart below. And then you're going to compose a journal entry analyzing the theme of Cupid and Psyche. So this questioning chart will help you to do that. So that's why we're going to go through the lesson first and look at this questioning chart to help you understand when you read Cupid and Psyche, because it is a little bit challenging, but I think you can do it with the help of this video and the questioning chart. So vocabulary: ambrosial, sweet smelling. Ambrosia was a sweet scent attributed to the gods and goddesses. Earnestly, pure and honest. Indignation, irritation at something felt to be unfair or unjust. And literal questions are questions with answers found directly stated within a text. So, using context clues to infer meaning and vocabulary. While many of our conversations around inferring have to do with the big ideas in texts, we can also use inferring skills on a smaller level to help us decode unfamiliar vocabulary. This process is called using context clues, which we have already talked about, but this is just a reminder on inferring meaning. So, the context clues are the words and phrases around an unfamiliar word which help us to infer the unfamiliar word's meaning. When you're reading a piece of literature, you will sometimes run into a word that you don't know. One way to figure out the meaning of the word is to look for clues in the rest of the sentence, paragraph, and passage. These are called context clues. Let's look at 2 techniques for finding context clues. Look for the words or phrases that are synonyms. Remember, synonyms mean a word that means the same or almost the same. Synonyms, or act like a hidden definition for the word you are trying to understand. Let's take a look at this sentence. The doctor was enraged when he opened the package from his patient. What does enraged mean? If we don't know the word, it's impossible to tell, but look at the next sentence. He threw the box and screamed, overcome with anger. Here's a great context clue. The doctor was overcome with anger. This seems to be continuing on the ideas from before. So overcome with anger seems to be the hidden definition of the word enraged. So synonyms, enraged and overcome with anger, are about the same thing. Another way to use context clues is to look for words and phrases that are antonyms, or the opposite of the word you're trying to understand. Michael was feeling ambivalent about his choices for the evening. What does ambivalent mean? If we don't know the word, it's impossible to tell how Michael's feeling about that evening. But let's look at the sentence that comes afterwards and see if we can find a context clue. This was strange because Michael was usually decisive, ready to make strong decisions. The phrase "this was strange" seems to be describing a contrast of some sort, an opposite. This context clue suggests that decisive, ready to make strong decisions, is the opposite of ambivalent. Ambivalent means unsure or of many opinions. So Michael was ambivalent, or he was unsure, or he had a lot of opinions and he didn't know which one to choose. So now questioning to make meaning. Take a moment to think about how you acquire information. What's the first step to gaining new knowledge? Most likely, it begins with a question. When we think of questioning in texts, we think of the basics: who, what, where, when. While these questions can help us to understand the basic plot, most of the answers will be literal. Okay? In order to make metacognitive meaning in text, we need to develop questions that are inferential. In other words, we need to get thinking. Okay? So linear thinking is when the answers are found within the text itself. Like if a question says, what are the main characters in this story? Then you go back and look who the main characters are: Sam, Joe, and Bob, or whatever. Those are the literal linear questions. If it's an inferential question, the answers must be inferred from the text. In other words, you have to think about the meaning. In linear questioning, that little reader reflection is required. You don't really have to think about it as much. Like if you say, what is the setting? You might say, oh, it was on a train in the middle of the night. That's literal and you don't have to think. An inferential question, reader reflection is required. So you have to think about it a lot more. Gotta put on your thinking cap. Remember in elementary school your teacher used to say that? More on linear questioning is to establish the basic plot and structure of the text, like what happens next. Inferential questioning promotes evaluation and analyzation of the texts. So, in other words, it makes you think and analyze. And lastly, linear questioning is useful in understanding what happens within a text. Inferential questioning allows the reader to go beyond the text and apply concepts in the real world. Inferential questioning throughout a text helps us to explore the author's theme or message. By questioning a character's motives and actions, we have a better understanding of why they might think, feel, and act as they do. Okay, a key point is inferential questions help us to practice analyzing and evaluating a text. Inferential question stems can include what if, how would I, what can I conclude, how can I prove, and what would I do or what would I think or feel. So practicing inferential questioning. The story of Cupid and Psyche is a perfect tool for practicing inferential questioning. The story of these two lovers goes beyond the exploration of natural phenomenon to the deeper theme of the path a human soul takes on its journey to happiness. Psyche is a mortal woman, okay, so a human, so beautiful that people begin to favor her over the goddess Venus. Venus, being jealous, sends her son Cupid to put Psyche in her place. However, Cupid's arrow misfires and he himself falls madly in love with Psyche. All is not well in this tale of love and war, and Venus works to make Psyche's life as difficult as possible. Will love triumph over all? So, make note, before questions, build our schema and begin with stems like, I wonder, could this be, what if? During questions, build our understanding and begin with stems like what could happen if, should this, how would, why did, how could. And after reading questions allow us to analyze and evaluate the text and begins with stems like, how could this have been different? What can I conclude? How can I use this? So following the BDA, or before, during, after chart, you're going to use it to help you build some questions while reading the story of Cupid and Psyche. As you read, make note of the questions that are answered and, just as important, those that are not. Okay, so this is something that's not going to be turned in, but it will help you if you just use a piece of paper and sketch out this little chart: before, during, after, and answer. Okay, you just have to make some columns and it'll help you answering your questions and answering your essay. So directions: use the chart below to practice inferential questioning as you read the story Cupid and Psyche from Bullfinch's mythology. Remember, inferential questions go beyond the who, what, where, and when of the text to find the author's deeper meaning. Inferential questions center around character actions and motivations, as well as the author's purpose and your own reaction to the story. Okay, so, and this isn't just for this lesson, but in the future, in future lessons and in 8th grade, etc., you're going to need to know how to do inferential questioning so that you can find the deeper meaning to things that you're going to be asked. Okay, so the key: B is questions you have before reading the text, D, questions which arise while you're reading the text, and A, questions you have once the text is finished. Once you've finished the text, go back and place a check mark next to your answered questions. Complete the writing prompt at the bottom of the page. So in other words, make this little chart, and before reading Cupid and Psyche, see if you have any questions that can't be answered literally. Okay, it's not the who, what, where, and when. Okay, and it doesn't have to be 4, however many questions you have. Okay, then go ahead and click on that Cupid and Psyche link under activities and read, and jot down some questions you have during the reading. Then when you're done, jot down some questions that you have after. Now go back and see if you have an answer to your before, during, or your after questions, and place a check mark in the answer column if you have your answers. And then it says, answer the following questions after reading the text. Take a look at the questions you asked. In what ways did they help you dig deeper into the text? And 2, look at the questions which are left unanswered. Which questions do you believe still need to be answered in order to make the most meaning from the story? Which questions can be left unanswered? Sometimes we have unanswered questions. In all of life, we have unanswered questions. So hopefully that chart will help you into finding themes and making meaning in the story of Cupid and Psyche. So in the Let's Review, inferential questions can help shape a reader's understanding of the text in a myriad of ways. Through questioning, we're better able to understand the actions and motivations of characters. We are able to more clearly comprehend the author's theme and purpose, and thereby make the text a part of our own schema. So right now we're going to go down and we're going to skip through the multiple choice questions because you'll be able to do those on your own. And we are going to go to the essay question for a little explanation here. It says, look at the following commentary on Cupid and Psyche from Bullfinch's mythology. The fable of Cupid and Psyche is usually considered allegorical, or it's symbolic of something else. The Greek name for a butterfly is Psyche, and the same word means the soul. Okay, so think about Psyche as being a butterfly or the soul. There is no illustration of the immortality of the soul so striking and beautiful as the butterfly. Okay, immortality means living on instead of dying. So there's no illustration of the immortality of the soul so striking and beautiful as the butterfly bursting on brilliant wings from the tomb in which it has lain, in other words, its cocoon, after a dull, groveling caterpillar existence, to flutter in the blaze of day and feed on the most fragrant and delicate productions of the spring. Psyche, then, is the human soul, which is purified by sufferings and misfortunes, and is thus prepared for the enjoyment of true and pure happiness. So, in your journal or in your little essay here, you have to reflect on Bulfinch's analysis of the story's theme. So, do you disagree or agree or disagree on his analysis, and why or why not? This analysis is what is in this box up above. So you can't just say agree, or you can't just say disagree. You have to say, I agree with Bulfinch's mythology analysis because, or whatever. Or you disagree and say whatever. So you need to, in your answer, you can discuss a connection to either many religious ideologies, which might relate to Cupid and Psyche, or the immortality of the soul, or you can relate it to the progression of life, as it's often reflected in cycles, life cycles, or you can relate it to a metaphor. Okay, the theme of Cupid and Psyche. So you're going to say that you either agree or disagree with this analysis above. Tell why or why not using religious ideologies, life cycles, or a metaphor, and then you need to use an example or examples of your reasons from the text. Again, that's textual evidence. Find a quote in Cupid and Psyche that you can write that would help explain your thinking or your agreement or disagreement. Okay? Now, there is no set number of words. This is going to take several sentences, and it does need to be in complete sentences, not just a word disagree or agree. Okay, so if you have any questions, be sure to ask me, and good luck on this, and goodbye for now.